In this episode, Nare, an ex-BCG coach and one of the fantastic members of the management consultant team, walks a candidate, Pascal, through a BCG case. She walks through the case at the beginning and then masterfully unpacks the insights at the end of the session. It's an incredible learning experience for anyone who's interested in BCG or another top firm. Enjoy.
So Pascal, our client is Simple Swipe. They are a credit and debit processor. They provide outsourced services to credit and debit card issuers. The issuer pays a percentage of transaction fees to Simple Swipe for providing the following services: credit authorization, fraud detection, accounting, and reporting. Issuers outsource this type of function because of the high cost of maintaining their own IT systems to perform the function. Our client, Simple Swipe, currently serves 10 of the top 20 issuers in the country, and they comprise about 90% of the entire credit card market. The 10 of the 20 that are not our customers either use our competition or they perform this function in-house. The number of credit card transactions is growing at about 4% annually. We earn a percentage of the transaction fee on every transaction, and that's how we primarily make money. And Simple Swipe has enjoyed double-digit growth over the last decade, and they're coming to us to see how they can continue enjoying this type of growth for the next decade.
Great. Thank you so much for the facts. So I am personally a big user of credit cards on a daily basis, so I'm very excited to work on this case. So just want to make sure I get the case facts right here. So our client is Simple Swipe, which is a credit and debit card processor, and the main clients are some of the credit card issuers in our country. Sounds like the business has three main business lines, so credit card authorization, fraud detection, as well as accounting and reporting services for some of these credit card issuers. Looks like our client is a pretty big player in the credit card industry, serving 10 out of the 20 top credit card issuers in the market, which accounts for about 90% of the credit card market. And looks like the market overall has been doing pretty well, growing at about 4% on an annual basis. And the business model really is to get a percentage of the transaction fee that gets approved for all of these credit card transactions. So our client has experienced double-digit growth from the last decades, and the question really here is for us to how do we sustain that growth going forward? Does it sound about right?
Sounds great.
Okay, if I ask a couple of clarifying questions regarding the objective of our clients here. I just want to make sure. Looks like we've been doing pretty well in the last decade or so. Does our client have a specific metric that they're trying to hit, whether it's top line, bottom line, what is the timeline that they want to achieve that?
Yeah, I think we're going to focus primarily on revenue here. And it is, again, how do we keep up double-digit revenue growth?
Okay, so we want to achieve, we want to keep the double-digit revenue growth, and is there so there's no sort of the timeline that we're working with? Is there what's the sort of the?
I think they like the fact that I would say a decade is really what they came to us with. They're coming to us to see if they can sustain that. But they've enjoyed double-digit revenue growth for the last decade, and they want to keep it up again for the next decade.
Next decade, got it. Great. And is there any sort of budgetary restraints or anything else that we need to be mindful of as we go into analyzing this?
Nothing, super pertinent to them.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. I think I have what I need for now. Okay, if I take a quick minute to write on some thoughts?
Of course.
Thank you.
We'll be right back after this quick message.
One of the biggest challenges with interview preparation for consulting is knowing what you don't know. And the best way to figure that out is to work with an expert coach. You can work with someone on our team for just one session where they can give you ideas for where you can build your prep, or you can work with them for 8 or more sessions to make sure that you're 100% ready for interview day. Check it out at managementconsulted.com.
Great. So in thinking about continuing the double-digit growth in revenue, primarily I have two areas I want to look into. One is the organic or internal factors, and then the other one is the external or inorganic factors that we can potentially consider. So in the organic factors, primarily we know the revenue is a function of price times quantity. So I wonder if there's ways to improve either price or quantities or both. So under price, I wonder if it's possible to do some contract renegotiation with some some of the major credit card issuers that we're currently servicing to extract perhaps a higher percentage of the credit card transaction fees that we're getting. Also, if it's possible to provide some premium services that charges a higher price point. We know that we're currently providing fraud detections, accounting reporting, things like that. So I wonder if it is possible to extract a higher price point, from any of those services. And from a quantity perspective, the ways to increase quantity would be to improve sales and marketing. I wonder if it's possible to reach a broader base of customers from sales and marketing efforts. Is it possible to do some promotions just to, from a quantity perspective, to get more of the issuers on board, or if it's possible to get into more of the credit card processing industries or industries that's not currently being covered, such as more cash-based, perhaps transaction type, or through the other online alternative that don't involve credit cards. If we can capture some of those markets to improve our quantities of the customers that we serve, that'd be great. And the second bucket is really the inorganic buckets. Here, I'm thinking if it's possible to do some mergers and acquisitions activities. I know our clients is one of the biggest players. It sounds like in the marketplace, there's got to be other competitors. Maybe they're a little bit smaller. It might make sense to acquire those players to just increase our overall customer base and increase our market coverage. I also wonder if it's possible to do some partnerships, with some of the other players in thinking about increasing our exposure to the overall credit card processing market there. And finally, I wonder if it's possible to start some additional business lines. To sort of capture more either a credit card processing or some of the more auxiliary business lines that could potentially add to our top line revenue there. So those are some of the thoughts that I have. And the hypothesis here really would be, to the extent that we can increase either price or quantity from our existing business, or we can, come up with some inorganic options to improve the overall capture of the credit card processing market. We will be able to sustain that double-digit growth going forward. So I guess, to start us off, I would like to look into the organic or internal buckets. Has our clients perhaps looked into some of the options to increase either price or quantities, going forward?
Great. So just some questions on that. I know you mentioned in the quantity portion, you wanted to look at some different revenue streams. How is that different? And you wanted to look at verticals. How is that different than the inorganic growth option that you had in the third or fourth bucket?
Yeah. So here in looking at the verticals, so in the organic buckets, primarily want to focus on existing verticals. So that would be the credit card authorization, the fraud detection, as well as the accounting and reporting services that our clients currently producing. So to the extent that we increase the exposure or the quantity of subscribers, to those services, I think that'll be really great. In terms of the inorganic buckets,
growing in terms of our existing services, growing the customers.
Yeah, growing the quantity of that.
Gotcha.
Yep. And in the inorganic buckets, I was thinking about coming up with additional service lines or business lines that are not currently in those three buckets. So there, I wonder any sort of the perhaps the consumer financing services, or for to break down the bulk purchasing, or anything, or sort of the fintech services that could be auxiliary to the overall
That's interesting.
Processing. Yeah.
That's interesting. What are some services that you think we could offer that, would be easy for us to tap into?
Yeah. Okay, if I take a quick moment on this one?
I just brainstorming off the top of your head.
Yeah, happy to. So thinking about the commercial or the consumer products that we are using, perhaps on our cell phones, I think, something like a Venmo, where, you don't really touch the credit card, but, offers a lot of the online financial transaction processing services. That could be something that would be good to look into. Also, from a consumer perspective, or consumer financial perspective, if you want to buy a big ticket item, you can offer maybe consumer credit for some of those big bulk purchases. I know one of the companies, a firm that just went public, recently. That's one of the companies that deals with that. I think also maybe from peer-to-peer lending perspective, because credit card processing ultimately relates to financial transactions and services, to the extent that we can facilitate some of the IT infrastructure for people to lend money to each other more easily. That could be something to look into as well.
Cool. That's interesting. So I guess in terms of looking at new verticals, what are some criteria that you would use? Is there If I was to come up with a chart and ask you, there's a couple different options, what are some criteria that you would use to determine if this is a low-hanging fruit item for us or not?
Okay, if I take a quick moment.
Let's just talk.
Well, we're just brainstorming. Okay.
We're just brainstorming.
Cool. Sounds good. Yeah, I think so. For the criteria, probably I'm thinking of bucketing into internal, external criteria. So external criteria, I think it'd be really good to look into sort of the industry growth, size growth and trends to see if we're talking on consumer credit, it'd be interesting to know how big the overall industry has grown over the past years, how fast it has grown, and what's sort of the market penetration. As well as who are the key players, I think, in that market. I think that would be interesting for us to know. From an internal perspective, it'd be good to see, what's the typical margin for these type of businesses are, how fast are we able to grow, our subscriber, from internally, over the past years, and maybe look at some of the metrics from our competitors to see how fast they were able to grow, the subscriber base, things like that. So from those two buckets, we can probably analyze that.
Okay. So I guess if I asked you, if we were going to look at our customer verticals, because I think we're talking about verticals here, would it make sense to target customers that we already have and, see if we can sell follow-on services to them? Is that something that would be a good idea?
We'll be right back after this quick break.
Have you ever heard a new digital trend and thought to yourself, okay, does this really matter? Asking the right questions helps you cut through the noise and get down to what matters most. I'm Jim Hertzfeld, host of the What If, So What podcast, where we discover what's possible with digital and figure out how to make it real by asking what if, so what, and most importantly, now what? Subscribe and listen, and together we can turn big ideas into tangible actions so you can get shit done.
Yeah. So, in looking at whether or not it makes sense to selling, follow-on services to the customers, it'd be interesting to see what's the current spend for a customer. On a per customer basis, I wonder if there's a lot of room to grow. What's our wallet share for these customers, as well as what are some of the ways that we can potentially think about improving those wallet shares. So selling follow-on, I think to the extent that is strong value add. That is relevant to what the customers are currently spending on, in which case or in our client's case it's credit card processing and fraud detection. So maybe something like credit monitoring or things that could be really relevant to what we're already providing. I think those are potential ways to sort of increase that.
Great. So we've actually been thinking about a couple different ways to make revenue. And one option is that we could license our software as an additional revenue stream, in addition to being the outsourced processor. So in this case, the issuer that we would sell it to would license our software and process the transactions in-house. And so instead of taking a transaction fee, we would take an upfront license fee as well as an ongoing maintenance fee. If we were to consider this option, what are some things that we should take into consideration?
Great. Okay, if I take a quick moment on this one?
Yeah, quick second.
Okay. Great. So two key things to consider here really would be that within economics, want to look into both the revenue and cost. So in the revenue, obviously, we get the upfront license fee and maintenance fee. So I wonder, how that would compare if we were to do some of those transactions processing for the target customers. So I think one key thing to look into will be cannibalization. Because people are switching over to the licensed product, they won't be requiring our service to do it for them anymore. So I wonder, what the bottom line impact is. Will be for that, and then from a cost perspective, so that's a revenue perspective. From a cost perspective, I think this will have less reliance on our current digital processing infrastructure, so cost might be a little bit lower for us. So the intuition here, this doing a licensing deal rather than sort of a processing transaction type deal will be a higher margin business for us. So it'd be interesting to sort of look into that and see if that actually plays out.
Yeah, so funny enough, we actually did a little bit of a study. And so what we found out is that if we actually go with this type of model, 50% of our existing customers would switch to this model. So it would actually result in some cannibalization. 50% of our existing customers would switch over. So that's about 5 issuers. We have 10 total. And out of the 10 remaining that are not our customers, half of them would switch over and come to our company with us. And so the revenue provided in this, the outsourced processing of our old model is $2 million. The upfront licensing fee moving forward with this new model would be $4 million upfront, as well as a $400,000 annual maintenance fee.
Great. So I just want to make sure I capture the information correctly. So out of the 10 customers that we're currently servicing, 50% of those 10 will be switching over to the new model or the licensed model. And out of the 10 out of the 10 that are currently not customers, 50% of those will switch over and come to us under the new model. Does that sound about right?
That sounds about right. Yeah. And I guess our client is really excited about this possibility. And, you know, considering the 10 years, let's just see what it would be like on a 3 to 5 year scale, you know, calculate both.
Okay. Great. So I think what will make sense for me to do is go ahead and calculate what the revenue would be for under the old model, you know, before the switch of our customer base, and what the numbers will look like after some of the customers switch over to the new model, as well as the acquisition of the new customers under the new models. If that sounds good with you.
Sounds great.
Okay. So we know that we under the old model we had 10 out of 20 customers, so that's 10 customers on an annual basis. Our revenue from these customers will be $2 million ahead. So that comes out to $20 million in total revenue on an annual basis. And then under the new model, we have five customers will remain under the old system. So 5 times 2 million, so that's 10 million in annual revenue. And then 5 of those will come under the new system. So that would be 5 times 4 million in upfront, which is 20 million in upfront subscription fee plus the $40,000 annually going forward. And finally, we have that 50% of the non-customers. So in this case, will be 5 additional customers. They're switching over and coming to us under the new model. So that's another $20 million in upfront fee plus another $400,000 going forward. So under the old model, we have a total annual revenue of $20 million. And under the new model, we have a total revenue of $10 million from the old customers who are not switching over, $20 million from the old customers who are switching over, as well as 20 from the customer who weren't customers before. So that's a total of $50 million in revenue, plus $800,000 in annual revenue in maintenance fees going forward. So that would translate to, on a 3 to 5 year scale, 800K times 3. So that would be 2.4 million. Yep. Okay, 2.4 million, and then 800 times 5. So that would be about $4 million or so. So in the next 3 to 5 years, we can expect to have a total revenue of 15 million.
Can you tell me just so I'm following along, so can you tell me what it would be in year 3 as well as year 5 individually?
Yep. So in year 3, we have the annual maintenance fee of $800,000 times 3, which is 2.4 million. And in year 5, we have the maintenance fees of $800,000 times 5, which is 4 million.
Annual maintenance. So the annual maintenance fee is $400,000.
Okay. Yep. So that's right. Sorry. So
let's just take it a step back for a second, and let's just go back to 3 to 5 years. So again, under the old model, they're making $2 million per customer. Under the new model, Half of them are still staying with the old model. Under the new model, they're going to gain, half of them are switching. They're going to take half of their competitors. And upfront, they're going to pay $4 million. And then annually, they're going to pay $400,000.
Yep, that's right. So, so what that means is upfront, we'll collect a total of $15 million under the new model. So that's calculated as the $10 million from the customers who aren't switching over. That's five customers times $2 million upfront. Oh, sorry.
So
I just realized.
To make this easier, can we do what the revenue would be under the old model in year 3, what it would be under the new model in year 3, what the revenue would be under 5, what it would be on, under the old model, what would it be in 5 years under the new model? So we can get a direct comparison of what's going on here.
Sure. Great. Sounds good. Great. So in year 3, so under the old model in year 3, we have the 10 customers that we started out with the $2 million per year. So in year 3, we can expect to be getting so the $2 million is annual revenue. So it's 10 customers times 20. So the 20 million doesn't change for year 3 and year 5.
Right, but what's the number? What is my revenue if I'm sorry?
So that would be 10 customers times $2 million annually. So that would be $20 million.
In year 3?
In both year 3.
I'm asking for, so I guess what I'm asking you for is we want to sustain double-digit growth. And so we're looking at 2 options. What's the total revenue? Because I guess let me ask you a question. What is a big difference between these 2 different types of revenue models that we're going to go with?
Yep. So to my understanding, I think under the old revenue model, we have an annual fee of $2 million per head charged to each customers. Whereas under the new model, the customer will pay an upfront fee. So that's a one-time fee that's paid, $4 million per head. But going forward, we only get $400,000 a year.
Right. So yeah, that sounds right. So what are some pitfalls or things that we should keep into consideration whenever we have such a big upfront fee and then, smaller licensing fees? If we're thinking about long-term growth.
Yeah. So the key thing to look out for is that your cash flow in the future years when you don't get the upfront fee would be a lot smaller. So I think customer acquisition in those following years will be important. So do we have any assumptions with regards to sort of the customer growth in the future years?
No, that's something that we would definitely have to take into consideration, which is why we want to look at the numbers overall, because understanding that, in the old model, we are getting the same amount of money per year. And so one thing is that it looks pretty good in years, 10 years, say, but under the new model, we're getting 4 million up front. Say we switch and in year 1, every other customer is like, oh, that's a great idea. We want to go with Simple Swipe. We like this model better. We like the upfront licensing fee and then the ongoing fee. It's a model that, SAS services are all using now. So, we're used to it. We want to do this type of model. And Simple Swipe, the CFO gets super excited. Look how much money we got up front. But our job as consultants coming in is to go, well, you want double-digit revenue growth over the next 10 years. So long term, because Simple Swipe doesn't plan on, selling its business. It doesn't plan on making a lot of revenue and then leaving. They want to stay in business for the next 10, 20, 30 years. So your job is to determine, is this a good idea long term? Not only just in year 1, but overall, what's the revenue if we change this business model? So I'd like you to calculate the total revenue that we would get after 3 years. In the old plan, the total revenue that we would get from, the minute we start this to the minute we hit year 3, and then the minute we start to the year 5. Does that make more sense?
Yeah. So not on like a per year basis, but overall from year 1 through year 3.
Yeah.
Understood. Okay. Yeah. I think that's what the confusion was lied. But yeah, I'll go ahead and run those number now. Thanks so much for the clarification here. So I think so from year 1 through year 3 under the old model, we have 10 customers times $2 million per year. So that's $20 million per year. So in 3 years, from year 1 to year 3, we're looking at $60 million under the old model. And for 5 years, so that will be 20 million times 5 years. So that will be $100 million over 5 years. And then under the new model, we have, so from year 1 to year 3, we know year 1, we're getting a total of 50 million as previously calculated. And we have the $800,000 per year going forward times 3. So that's, so that's 2.5. So that's $2.5 million, $2.4 million going forward from year 1 to year 3, we can expect to get 52.4 million.
Is that all? Because under the new model, so under the new model, half our customers are staying with the old model.
Yes. Sorry. Yep. I see that made an error there. So under the So we have 2 groups of customers under the new model. So that would be $10 million per year times 3. So that's 30 million under the people who are staying on the old model. Plus a one-time fee of
Pascal. So under the we're talking about the new model, right? So under the old model, just so you know, we're on the same page. Under the old model, how many customers do we have?
Under the old model, we had 10 customers.
Right. And so if we switch over to the new plan, half of our old customers would switch over to this new plan. So cannibalization, like you said, did occur.
Right. So that means we have five customers who are remaining under the old plan.
Right. So what would that revenue be if they stayed under the old, the new, under the new plan, the old revenue model? How much would it generate from the customers that didn't leave?
So the 5 customers that remain under the old plans, though, that would be $10 million per year. Is that right?
Yeah. And in 3 years?
So that's 30 million.
Okay. And so let's calculate the revenue that we would get under the upfront licensing fee, as well as the ongoing subscription for the 5 customers that switched over, as well as the 5 customers that we would steal from our competitors.
Yep. So that's a total of 10 customers times $4 million per head. So that's a total of $40 million collected in year 1 for the upfront license fee. Plus 800,000, so $400,000 dollars per year.
At 3 years.
Yep. So $400,000 per year, 400K per year, times 3 years times 10 customers total. So that's 12 million.
Is it 12 million?
Over 3 years. Sorry. So this would be, so we have 10 customers total. So 5 customers that switch over from the 10 that were old, as well as 5 customers that were newly acquired. So each customers would provide $400,000 a year in the maintenance fee. And there are 10 total customers. So on an annual basis, this would be $4 million in annual maintenance fee across the 10 customers. And then over 3 years, 4 times 3 is $12 million.
Okay, just making sure.
Okay, great. Great. So we have the 30 million from the customer that didn't switch, 40 million from the upfront fee, and then 12 million that's collected over the 3 years. So that is a total of $82 million, which is a lot more than sort of the $52.4 million that we had previously calculated for year 1 through 3.
So what happens in year 5?
Yep. So for year 5, the number looks like this would be. So this would be 20. Okay. Sorry. So this would be 20 million times. Sorry, I think I'm confusing myself, the numbers a little bit. Year 5. So under the old system, the year 5 would have generated $100 million in revenue with $20 million per year times 5. So that's 100 million. And then for the customers that didn't switch over, so that would look like 5 times. So that's 10 million times 5. So that's 50 million. And then for the customers that 20 million. For the customers that did switch over, so that would be 40 million. So if the 40 million upfront would not change, plus the 40 for the 400K times per year times 5 times 10. So that would be, so that's 20 million. So that's just 20 million. For a total of 60 million times plus 50 million. So that's 110 million, which is higher than the 100 millions that we had previously calculated.
Is there a difference that you see though?
Yeah, so it looks like for year 3, there's a differential of 22 million, so comparing the 82 millions and the 60 millions. But from year 5, the differential has lowered from to 110 millions over 100 million. I think the reason for that is, again, we're collecting most of the money up front. So going forward, this could be something that actually is not very beneficial. Our goal is to do the double digit.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good point. Could you tell me what it would be if our goal is a decade? What would happen in year 10?
Yeah. So just running the numbers a little bit longer. So it looks like year 10, we can expect 20 million. So over 10 years, horizon 10 years, we can collect $200 million. But under the old system, under the new system, we can expect to collect, so 10 times 10 equals 100 million. The rest will be 40 million plus 400 times 5 times 10 times 10. So that's another 40 million. So that's 80 million. So for a total of 180 million. So this act will actually be collecting 20 millions less than if we hadn't switched to the old system.
Yeah. So this was. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so this is interesting. I think what the numbers are telling us is it wouldn't be good to actually switch over if our goal is to increase our revenue and actually keep it increasing in double digit over 10 years, given that under the old system, we can actually expect to extract more revenue from our customers compared to the old.
Yeah. Say otherwise, let's say otherwise, we would stick with the same customers. Say this is a pretty, stagnant market. It's not growing. If we kept the old system, we would keep the same customers over the next decade. Under this new model, what are some benefits to this new model that you might be thinking of? Say our head of product innovation is super excited about this idea and he came to you directly and he really wants you to make this work. What are some things that you could think about that might be able to help us out over the next decade?
Yeah. Is it okay if I take a quick minute on this one?
He's in front of you right now. He's heartbroken.
In front of me right now.
Heartbroken that in 10 years he's going to make less money. You got to give him some ideas right now.
Awesome. Yeah, let's take a crack at it. So I think, looking at the numbers, a couple of the assumptions and numbers that we use in our calculations, I wonder if there's any flexibility there. So, we can start with sort of the $4 million in upfront fee as well as the $400,000 in ongoing fees. So I wonder, one, is it possible to sort of break down the $4 million in upfront fees and just, have that instead of a one-time thing. We can sort of, collect a subscription fee on an annual basis going forward. Additionally, I wonder if there are ways to increase perhaps the $400,000 in annual maintenance fees I wonder if we're able to sort of provide value add services to make the number a little bit higher, or just negotiate with credit card issuers to extract a higher number from these people. And additionally,
No, please.
Yeah. And additionally, I also like the fact that we're acquiring new customers. I wonder, if it's possible to sell other value-add services, add-on services to these customers that weren't in our portfolio before, and extract additional economics from them as well.
Yeah, that's super interesting. So our client is actually ready for their final recommendation on this, and they would love to hear everything that you found.
Okay, great. If I take a moment, I know I asked this question so many times.
They're actually going to jump on our Zoom, but I think I might be able to hold them in our waiting room for like 10, 15 seconds as they, 15 seconds. Yeah, they connect to audio and all of that. So you got a real quick second.
Okay.
We'll be right back after this quick break.
One of the challenges candidates face when trying to prep for case interviews is using old cases that are from case books that everyone has been using since 1995. If you're interested in up-to-date cases with real-time solutions that include level 1, level 2, and level 3 answers, and over 500 of them, you can check it out at managementconsulted.com. In addition, for a free taster, we have every month a free case of the month. So make sure that you log on, grab that, and get started today.
Great. So I think the recommendation here today would be to go ahead and switch over to the subscription model. So the goal here really is to maintain the double-digit growth rate, for our company going forward. I think, to really inject some of the vitality, we do need to sort of switch over to a new system. But some of the risks that we identified earlier is that if we do stick with sort of the high upfront fee and sort of the low annual maintenance fees model going forward, we actually won't be able to achieve that target. The way to address that will be to fiddle with some of the assumptions that we use, such as instead of having a one-time fee, we can have an annual subscription fee for our software going forward, as well as perhaps increasing some of the annual revenue through maintenance and other value-add services that we can charge from the subscription model. I think the next step will be to tease out, what those numbers could be, how willing our customers will be to accept those numbers, going forward, as well as, how ready the market is. Might make sense for our company to provide some additional market studies, for our clients going forward.
Whew, you're done. You can take a breath.
Oh, wow. That's, thank you.
Yeah. You did great. Good job under pressure. I know it's much for everybody watching. It is so much tougher to be under the gun and have 100 people watch you. So everyone give Pascal a round of applause because
thank you.
He just jumped in, and this is a brave thing to do. So kudos to that. I would say this is a good experience for you because just in general, when we're in an interview setting, we are in kind of a fight or flight mode, right? This is a great exercise for you, and I'm so happy you did it because you can reflect on this and you can think, what happened when I was in a high pressure situation? So I'd love to hear from you. What happened that might have not happened when you're practicing with a friend or even in a one-on-one coaching environment? I would love to hear your feedback as to how you think this went, some areas for improvement, and sort of just a reflection right afterwards of, kind of what happened.
Yeah. So, when I was going through the math, it's not difficult math, but there are definitely points where I'm staring at the paper and I just don't remember, where all the pieces fit. I just completely blank out and I was just panicking. I think there were some pauses that I took that felt a bit longer, and that's the reason why I definitely panicked a little bit. And I think that's, the pressure really, did get to me in a way. And I think it's just that the conversation didn't flow as fluently as it probably would have otherwise because of the pressure. Again, I know this is, one of my short staff. I always get tripped up when the pressure is really dialed up. So that's how I felt.
Yeah. And is there anything that you going through that and kind of getting stumbled? I want to hear from you first. Is there anything that you would want to do differently if you got a chance to do it over?
I think there's some elements of paper management. I think especially when it comes to math, having really clear a good paper management would really be something that would have helped. I think.
Yeah. Are you using graph paper right now or blank paper?
Blank paper. Yeah.
Okay. So maybe graph paper would help. When you So maybe some graph paper would help, especially if paper management is one of those things. And if math is something that tends to trip you up, we typically you can use 2 sheets of paper. If this is something where the space and having that clarity would very much help you out, invest in some graph paper before, divide it up into 2 categories or divide them up into different boxes, or get graph paper with bigger boxes just so you can work with it. And keep your paper more organized. Because one of the things that I think would have helped you through the math, and of course we know the math took longer, is the same way that you're communicating your case structure to me and I'm trying to write it down, the same way I'm communicating a verbal math problem to you. In school, whenever we had verbal math problems, we would look at it and then we would write it down in math terms, right? And so don't forget that. You have a verbal math problem that you're trying to put down in equations. So make that be your goal as you're listening to it. If you miss some piece of information, as you're recapping it to me and whatever, make sure that you have it very clear to you, because there might have been a part where it wasn't clear to you exactly what the equations were. Because when we have a verbal math problem, it's okay. So we have a sentence. How do we turn that into an equation, right? So keep that with your same goal, so that when you're recapping it to me, you know exactly what equation you're solving, and you know that you and I are both on the same page. Because if you heard something or you interpreted something differently than me and you don't clarify it with me, all of a sudden I think you don't know how to do the math versus you just didn't hear the question correctly. So during that recap, make sure that you're making sure that is clear. Quickly, before we run out of time, I do want to go through the entire structure. So on the background, I think you did a great job. I think you kept it to a minute, which was great. Case and objective, the clarifying questions. Time-wise, you were at about 1:25. And the questions you asked me, I think you could have gone a little bit deeper with them. And I would love to know why you're asking these questions. That would have helped a lot just for more context. And, you could have taken a second to ask me more nuanced questions if you wanted. You did have a little bit of extra time. I would say overall, you could have slowed down in terms of your speaking. Not in terms of the doing, but I think the doing took a little bit of a longer time. The grand pause, you took about 2 minutes and 7 seconds. So you were right on the mark for how long it took. The game plan took you about 3 minutes to explain, even though you were speaking very quickly. One thing for your structure that I think would be very helpful is in terms of your boxes. I would say you want to think about it on the 3-tier level, like top objective. This is what we're trying to solve. Here are the 4 categories that I'm going to look at, 3 or 4 categories. And ideally we want to keep it to 4 categories, not 3. So 3 or 4, those 4 categories, and then go down each list. Because like you saw, as I'm explaining a problem to you, it's harder to follow along. So especially over Zoom, you want to make sure that everyone is able to follow along. You want to make sure your interviewer knows what the top line is, knows what different boxes to expect, if it's going to be MECE, so that I'm not asking questions on data point 3 here. Wait, is he going to cover this later on? That's not my thought. I'm very present and I'm there with you and I'm able to follow along each category. And I would say for a structure, the structure wasn't, as I asked you more questions, you probably found a couple more things. And this became very much a revenue growth, market growth type of problem. So, customers was one, competition came out. So overall, the buckets I like the idea of having the buckets of, existing product lines and new opportunities. I didn't mind that as a mini structure for you to think about how you're going to bucket them. But, with our existing product, how do we increase price and quantity? Great, revenue. We talked about the market. We talked about competition. We talked about, different customers, what their preferences are. So there were different areas that we could have looked at that would have came up with a more MECE type of structure, because we talked about a few, but it wasn't comprehensive enough, as we saw with the direction the case went later on. So I would say in terms of structuring, there are some exercises, I would go through, if you have access to the Management Consulted website, we have structuring drills. I think that would be a really great idea for you to do that. You can look in the case library, just read the case or have somebody read the case to you, and then come up with a comprehensive structure and check it on what the level 2 answer would be. Since you have done so many cases, I want you to be prepared for the final round interview, not just a passing interview. So level 3 is all right. let's try to get the level 4 answer where it's a fully comprehensive structure in place. And I don't know if you have any questions on that because, as we went along, did you kind of see where there were gaps in your case structure?
Yeah, no, that makes sense to me.
Yeah. We talked a little bit. I would say the creative case questions, you kept asking me for time, and I just wanted you to throw it off the top of your head. Typically with the math, or if there was something super complex that required a longer structure, I might give you a pause. But in an interview, the way I was treating this is the way that I was interviewed. Just off the top of your head. So I would get used to just spewing things off the top of your head. As you're going through, you could write down on the side a quick structure. But for the first one, is what do we have to consider? You said there's, benefits and there's costs. Did you really need that time to think about benefits and costs, or you knew that you were going to think about benefits and costs? Because it felt like you did. Because once I pressured you to answer it, you answered those questions. You didn't need that pause, which is something that I want you to acknowledge as well. Once I pressured you and I didn't give you that time, you were still able to do so. So do we really need the pause, or do we need to trust ourselves a bit more?
Makes sense.
Yeah. I would say with the case closing, because we talked a little bit about the quantitative and we can go back through, but I just want to make sure that we go through everything. In the case closing, I think you caught yourself as you started speaking. We want to always start off with a quick recap. I said the CEO walked in, he's a new person. The last time we saw them was kickoff. They gave us the problem and then we went off to work, and we haven't seen this guy since. So everything that we did in our case, he doesn't know about because he's busy running the company and he hired you to take care of that information for him. So he needs to be caught up real quick. So a quick way is just being like a quick recap. Here's what we were brought in to do. Here's the problem. Here's the goal. To do so, here's what we did. We looked at a couple different things. One thing that we focused on was looking at this new revenue opportunity. And what's your recommendation on that? Was it a yes or no? Do we go with this? Do we not go with this? We want a firm, direct answer as to yes or no. Do we continue with this? Do we not continue with this? And then next steps after we decide to, and you said, this is a good opportunity. If we consider these following things, I would say, yes, I think this is a good opportunity because although over 10 years, we're going to see a decrease in revenue, we're going to see an increase in quantity. And I would like to explore other options of, upselling, looking at different verticals that we can enter into with this larger customer base, because we've explored, a new revenue segment. We haven't explored price or transaction fees. We haven't explored any other quantity options. So I think with, first we had 10 customers, now we have 15 customers. We've seen a 50% increase in customers. That's pretty significant. What can we do to utilize and maximize our opportunities with this new customer base that we weren't able to if we stuck with the old model? So I think you covered that a little bit in the next steps, but I think having a clear structure of, and maybe just practicing having something on the side where as you're going through your recommendations with your cases, you have quick recap. Here's what we did. Here's my recommendation, yes or no, based on what we looked into the case, your reasons why, and next steps moving forward. I would say one more thing to just consider, because this has been coming up more and more in cases, is the risks involved with your case. Especially when we're considering financial services, there's been a lot of regulation that's been added on. So saying something quickly about SEC regulations, making sure that there's no consumer data, infringement, whatever it is, you want to make sure that those things are covered, because especially in this industry after 2008, especially, there's been heavy regulation in the lending market, in the financial services market. So those are some things that you also just want to mention as a this is all great, but let's make sure we don't forget about the government. Let's make sure we don't accidentally shoot ourselves in the foot there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Nare.
Yeah, of course. Any more questions? And also that part when I was pressuring you, sometimes I'll do that on your zeros and I kind of noticed you were stumbling on your math. So I wanted to make sure I asked you that question. It wasn't wrong. I just wanted you to make sure that you knew it was right. And you didn't just take, my pressure as a way to give in. So good job on that. And good job on powering through. I want to make sure that you did get through it, and you did. and you got the right answers. Took a second, but you got there. So congratulations on that, and pushing forward and not giving up through all of that.
Great, thank you. Thanks for the feedback.
Of course.
That case was challenging, interesting, and exactly representative of what you would get in a BCG interview. But if Nare was more challenging than peer partners that you worked with, that should be something you take note of. In fact, you might want to consider hiring us to be a case coach as you're thinking about preparing for case interviews. We give you honest, unfettered feedback so that you know exactly what you need to work on to succeed in the interview. If you'd like to book a session, you can just click the link in the show notes. If you loved this episode, please review it and also share it. We hope to have you back for a future episode of Strategy Simplified.